Hi, we're here in San Jose at WebRTC Conference and Expo 5. I'm Eric Lanask, and on the program with me is Doug Tate from Oracle. Doug, great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you again since Lambda and since the last time.
So, enjoyed the keynote. I thought you made some really salient points there. One thing I wanted to start with is kind of where are we at with WebRTC in terms of adoption? I've heard a lot of different sort of viewpoints on that. Some we're sort of behind what expectations were for now. Some are sort of right where they thought we might be, and others think everything is very good and we're well above expectations. What do you think?
I share your view in that I think early on there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of hope and promise that this thing will be coming to us a lot sooner than what we see. I think we see the drag in the industry from the likes of Microsoft and Apple. And I see the industry saying, well, we're not going to wait for them. We're going to move forward with this. But you see just a handful of those deployments, which I do see as an encouraging sign. If you didn't see any, we'd be in trouble. So just a handful of those things that are being deployed. And I was also encouraged when someone asked out there how many people are working on a WebRTC deployment right now. I counted about 10 hands in the audience. We see those big deployments, great. What's nice is probably for every one big deployment, there's about 10 small little deployments all around the enterprise, all around healthcare, all around education. So I'm encouraged. We certainly want to see it be a lot further down the road than it is, but I think we're moving down that path nicely.
So another interesting point is something that as far as the conversations I've had at these shows over the past 2 years, I think there are a lot more people echoing your sentiment that, you know what, Microsoft, Apple, we're not going to wait for you. We're going to do this, and we're going to make it work whether you want to join us or not. So what are some of the other things that are sort of slowing down adoption? Some
of the issues around security and reliability and interoperability, some of the things I know we're addressing at our company. Just a simple thing like security, we overlook it. But the fact is, you have your phone, and that's a secure phone number that you own. And now what do you do for WebRTC? Well, do you use that phone number again, or do you issue new IDs? It just seems like something so simple, but we overlook that, yet there is no unified approach for WebRTC here. And you'd hope you'd see the telcos or someone leading the charge there to at least federate or come up with some kind of scheme for identity management. That's one area. The other is around the reliability and having reliable servers in place where they don't fail like you typically see a web server fail or freeze. We have that reliability on the network side. It's time to have it on the internet side as well. I point my browser to a site. I'm surfing. I want to make a call. We have a session that comes up and it stays up reliable. Regardless of whether I surf away or surf back or refresh my screen or I freeze, that thing has a higher level of reliability than the normal internet processing than we see on phone calls. So these are just a few things that I see holding back or dragging. We're addressing it at Oracle. I'm glad to see others addressing as well.
You mentioned the concept of sort of a single identity, and this isn't the first time people have been talking about it. We've had this conversation for years. Why is that potentially now poised to change? That it actually could come to fruition?
I think I'm hoping to see the CSPs, large communication service providers, waking up. The fact that they own their customer based on that phone number, they can go forward with that. And if they don't, you can take other forms of ID and use them to match your identity. It's interesting because another conference I attended, they saw it as a third world, first world scenario where in the third world, there are no identities, and so it's easier almost to deploy things like WebRTC because you can create your own. Whereas in the first world, I have 6 or 7. I have a driver's license, I have a phone number, I have a passport, I just go through the whole entire list. And you could use any number of those or federate those into an identity. But it's simple, sorry for the long answer, but the simple answer, you could go ahead, Facebook or Google could provide that level of federation and leap ahead of everyone else and get everyone online very quickly.
Not that this isn't necessarily something that Oracle or even the other vendors here at the show have any control over. But what are the kinds of things? Are there certain things that you can do to deal with differences in network conditions or connectivity conditions? Because obviously, being on a mobile device in a rural area, being in the middle of a large metropolitan area, being at home on your wired network, you're going to have different levels of connectivity.
Yeah, we see that. I even see this in the trade shows.
Sure.
You know, here I'm running a great demo of my booth here. I go to Hong Kong, things don't work. I go to Singapore, it works great. And so it depends on who's the carrier and making that connectivity, making those connections happen. And this is where, again, going back to the CSP or the communications service provider, they're good at this. And they could up-level that level of service to a new degree, provide that level of connectivity. And if they want to do it on a price point or premium basis or as needed basis, fine. But to bring that to the table, they are well poised and positioned. They know how to make connections from any point on the earth to any other point on the earth, and they know how to do it in a fairly quality fashion. So they're well poised and in a good position. They could even offer that service to enterprises. So the infrastructure's out there. I know our problem in the internet, we are suffering with doing our best as opposed to having that high quality there. And I think that's some of the things we're grappling with in the WebRTC community, is as best as opposed to being the high quality.
You've referenced the CSP community a couple of times, and in your last comment, talked about the possibility of sort of a premium model, things like that. Is that how you imagine service providers are going to end up monetizing things like WebRTC?
I see it as an easy way forward. Monetization is always a tough one. They're always the first one to ask us, well, how do we make money at this? Whereas you see enterprises, it's easier for them. They can easily enhance their web page. So making money is always an issue for the service provider. I guess they're used to that old nickel and dime you to death. They can always count on that. But I know for me, my cell phone, when I make I'm always losing this thing 3 times a day. And I'd much rather have high definition quality either from AT&T or Verizon all over the internet when I'm at my desk than trying to find my phone and get poor quality voice. So for them just to provide me a better service through the internet is far more attractive as a subscriber. You can see that you can take that business scenario where they could even offer that up at a premium price. So I think just the basic fundamental communications, quality communications to subscribers, reduce churn, go after other businesses, and then they can go beyond their borders. They can go out to other places any place where there's the internet. Now, of course, then they may not own that space on the internet, but it gives them a lot more options.
And you also mentioned the enterprise having sort of an easier sell on WebRTC. What is the enterprise use case? What's the model for the enterprise getting into it?
Well, pick your industry. Is it going to be education? Is it going to be healthcare? We've seen a lot of movement down to healthcare. I've seen the first deployments of WebRTC with healthcare, and just the fact that they can manage the calls and manage the data around healthcare. We're demonstrating that in our booth with a company called Span, where they build healthcare-based solutions. So that's I think they're all varied. We all see the click to call. That's all over the place. And then the conferencing seem to be they're the easy pickings. And then add unified communications. But I think there's more interesting approaches when we start mixing in things like M2M with a B2B or B2C type of scenario. Then you come up with these, I think, more interesting hybrid stuff where you can get real-time feeds, data analytics on your data channel at the same time. I could be talking to an analyst or talking to you or talking to conferencing. And you start mixing that. Now you come up with some very interesting stuff. So I think it's really a hybrid of all that.
So, it almost sounds like, kind of, and this isn't really surprising, voice and even video are sort of going to be the table stakes for what you do with WebRTC, and your utilization of the data channel is really going to be the differentiator.
The silver bullet, no question about it, because we already have voice and video and voice now. I can do that with Skype. I can do it with anything. But the fact that I can now bring in the context of that discussion, that's when it becomes really useful. And then do that on a browser or multiple browsers. And I think the other interesting thing which we see here and a lot of the companies are doing here, taking WebRTC out of the browser and putting it into devices as yet another endpoint, whether that's doing voice or video or you're doing M2M or IoT. You're doing Internet of Things or M2M, and then connect that back into an overall system. It becomes very interesting.
Excellent. Again, one last question for anyone who wants to find out more about what Oracle's doing around WebRTC. Where can they find more info?
Well, you can always go to oracle.com, but another very good site is www.webrtc-solutions.com.
Check out the Oracle site. Check out WebRTCSolutions.com. Check out Oracle here at the show. Doug, thanks as always for being here.
Thank you.